welcome to another week of Libertarians at Large. My name is Eric Rautzep, and this is where we discuss the week in news and express a libertarian point of view on the goings-on in our nation and abroad. We welcome your comments and questions in the chat box, so feel free to comment regularly. We may share your comment on the air. This week, I am joined by my fellow Libertarian at Large member, Laura Ebke, and our special guest, Will Hyman, elected Libertarian in the great state of West Virginia. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Very good. Will, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you on. So congratulations, you're an elected Libertarian, one of quite a few hundred that are around the country. So that is awesome, and thank you for being on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Why don't you tell everybody what your actual position is? Not that you're just elected, you know.
I'm a member of the city of Clarksburg council, city council. It is a nonpartisan position. It's a board of basically 7 members and a mayor and a vice mayor. And it's been interesting so far. The election was June 1st. I came in fourth in a four-place election out of 11 candidates, and the candidate that finished fifth challenged it in a recount. So I had to bite my nails and go through a recount where it started at 35 votes, and I ended up extending my lead to 37 votes. So it was kind of a sigh of relief afterwards, and. It was an interesting experience going through the recount process and watching that unfold with paper ballots. And we also, in that election, we passed some really great charter amendments to our city where we moved the city election to coincide with the May primary elections here in West Virginia. We're hoping to bolster turnout with that. We had a charter amendment for initiative, referendum, and recall, which we had not had in the past. So now we can actually carry petitions and enact referendums and recall our elected officials. Another thing we did was pass term limits in our election. We had a charter amendment to enact term limits. So it's all great things all around, and they all passed overwhelmingly, and I was elected as well. So I ran for council in 2019 as well, and that was my biggest part of my platform was initiative, referendum, and recall. So I was glad that the other council picked that up and ran with it, and I got to vote on it in an election.
And how big is your city?
It is 15,000 roughly residents. There's 7,900 registered voters in our city. I guess our biggest issue, with the election itself is turnout. We usually have less than 20%, of our, people come out to vote. I think there's a number of reasons for that, but and maybe we'll get into that later. But it was I finished fourth place with 537 votes. So and the lead vote getter had 800. So.
There you go.
It's interesting to just sort of political nerddom, but a lot of communities that have the non-major election year elections, and have them in sort of an unusual time.
Oh yeah.
Have the same problem in terms of turnout. It's like they almost thrive on that. It takes a very special group of people to show up when it's not part of the regular election cycle.
Absolutely. That's a huge issue in our city. I'm glad you brought it up. I think we had 18% turnout in this election. In 2019, when I ran, I finished, I think it was 7th out of 14. So I finished middle of the pack with 371 votes. And in that election, I was surprised I did so well. But I think part of that was a great door campaign, and in this election I told myself I was going to knock all the doors I could, and that was another big part of it. I'm sure we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Well, and the amazing thing is, you're absolutely right, that there is a huge voter drop-off on off-year elections, but your city council is one of the things that actually has the largest impact on your day-to-day life.
Absolutely.
Voting for city council, voting for mayor, if you want to make a difference for you and your community, that's where it is. Politics is local, and people are just don't follow through on that, and it's really sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat Ford, I had an interview with Pat Ford twice in the last couple months now. And he mentioned in the first interview, he called it lunch pail politics. And it's absolutely right. You know, these people, a lot of the people who go out to vote in these elections are are city employees or work directly in the city and are affiliated with the city somehow with a business, and that's their livelihood. That's why, and they go out and vote. They're determined to vote. However, there's a large portion of the population who just doesn't do that. And like I said, I think there's a lot of circumstances here in our city, in our county, and the state of West Virginia, for that matter, with unemployment, and we have a large population of government employees. It was once said a few years ago, I heard a radio stat on a local talk show, 1 out of 3 working people in my county, Harrison County, work for some level of government, whether it's the federal, state, county, schools, municipal. I mean, it's amazing to think that 1 out of 3. And then, of course, we have a very bad stat. 1 out of 7 West Virginians are receiving some type of public assistance, well, whether it's Social Security or something along those lines. So we have just a lot of voter apathy. And when these elections fall in summertime, June 1st, on an odd year when there's no elections, it's people just don't come out, and there's lots of reasons for that too.
That's amazing. I didn't know those statistics for West Virginia. That's
we have a large FBI campus here. 5,000 some people go to work for the FBI here in our county, and again, with all the schools and municipalities and the county, the sheriff's department and other state road and other things, that's a lot of people work for the government. That's just how it is here.
Well, and that's the way it is in a lot of places. I mean, it's become more and more like that. It is, you go to Lincoln, Nebraska, and it's the same kind of thing, because you have not only the University of Nebraska, which is a government, you've got a community college there, plus then you've got the seat of government. A good chunk of Lincoln, Nebraska, population, 250 or almost 300,000. A pretty good chunk works for some level of government, whether it's city, county, state, or else the university or college system. So, that's certainly an issue. So, what are some of the issues in Clarksburg, Clarksburg, right?
Yes, Clarksburg, West Virginia.
Okay. Well, it's in the north.
North central part of the state. We're south of Morgantown, West Virginia, which is the home to West Virginia University. We're about 2 hours. We're about 2 hours south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're about 2 hours from the capital of West Virginia, Charleston, and we're basically an old relic of the Rust Belt. I like to describe the Rust Belt as kind of like a solar system. And Clarksburg and points south of us, when you get to Charleston and even southern West Virginia counties, are like the outer rim of the Rust Belt galaxy. I mean, there is nothing going on here. We're all the industry left in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Clarksburg, West Virginia, was one of the highest producing glass areas in the state and in the nation. And we had several glass plants. We had a lot of coal here as well. And those are gone. And, there's still coal in West Virginia, obviously, in other parts of the state, in the southern part of the state. But, we don't have many mines here as we used to. All the glass industry is gone, and it's been replaced with government. I mean, literally, that's what it's been replaced with, because they have the jobs, apparently. So, one of the biggest things that happened to our area is that we got an interstate running through our area, and that's brought a lot of commerce in. There are a lot of commercial properties, and service industry, food industry has propped up along the interstate, which is keeping our city alive, because once the industry left, the city of Clarksburg was once one of the largest cities in the state of West Virginia, and now we're roughly, I think, 15th or 16th. We went from nearly 35,000 people in 1950 to what we're at now, 15,000 people. So it's and unfortunately we're trending that way still, and we got to fix that. That is the number one issue in our city. I think behind that, it's typical issues that come with the shrinking city. We have a lot of abandoned buildings. We're like Detroit. We got whole blocks of abandoned buildings almost, and lots of just lots of properties that are run down, and that attracts unfortunately vagrants and other people who live on the street and other things like that. So it's big city problems in little city West Virginia.
Municipal governments have a real challenge, especially in rural areas where you do have a lot of this, the buildings and the houses that are starting to deteriorate. Some of them have just been altogether abandoned. And what do what do the city officials do about that? I mean, people expect the city, the municipal government to do something. And in some ways, if you want to attract more people, you've got to do something, because you don't want somebody driving through your town and seeing, everything dilapidated.
Absolutely.
But it's a real problem.
We have a large, several story, beautiful hotel building called the Waldo, and it's been abandoned for 20 some years, and it's right on one of our main streets in our town. And there's been talk about, again, there's kind of camps that say, we need to buy the Waldo and invest like we did into the Robinson Grand movie theater that we were talking about over the weekend, Eric. And they want the city to invest to the tune of probably 20 some $million into this hotel to renovate it. And of course, there's other people on the other side are like, just tear it down. I use my money to tear it down. Use taxpayer dollars to tear it down. And I'm kind of torn between the two positions, obviously, because honestly, I don't want to see it torn down as much as I don't want to see taxpayer dollars used to tear it down. So it's an unfortunate situation, but we have to do something, because these properties could end up hurting somebody. Something could come off of this structure and kill somebody. Structures are burning in our city and catching other buildings on fire that people live in. And it's been an ongoing issue for several years, and unfortunately, unless something drastically changes, it's going to be the continuing trend.
I'm sorry, but the challenge is really finding the libertarian solution, and there may not
absolutely.
be one, right?
Well, sure. So we've talked about different solutions, getting involved in a land bank where, there's a chartered organization that purchases the properties, turns around, tries to sell them to people who want to renovate them, or even demolish them to sell the lots to put back into the land bank. So we're talking about that. We're talking about, obviously, some properties just have to come down, and we are going to have to use our money to do it. So how can we kind of streamline that process, and making sure that we are tearing down the right ones, and not ones that are condemned or abandoned just because a window is broken. They're literally that. The issues are wide ranging, from burnt down structures to just houses that have no gas connection to them. It's definitely an interesting problem, and thankfully the city's done a lot to do it. But of course, it's come to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money.
That was actually going to be my question, was what percentage of these abandoned properties has the city somehow taken over through either property tax evasion or delinquency or whatever?
Well, from what I understand, it takes 2 years for a condemned property to be able to be demolished. So it takes at least 2 years for that property to go through the entire process, and then it takes several years beyond that to actually set aside funds out of the city budget to tear that property down. And people can, obviously, they can contest it. The owners can do that. What we have here is a problem in Clarksburg, and again, it stems from our depopulation. It's a lot of these property owners are dead. A lot of these property owners live in California, or in New York, or in Pennsylvania. They've moved away for opportunity, or the owners have passed away, left it to their children or their children's children who live in other states. Some of them live right across the interstate in another town, and they're all connected to the area, and they don't really see a reason to renovate the property, because one, they're not going to get the value that they think they're going to get for sinking maybe $10,000-$20,000 into a property. So it's difficult, and some people will get the bill for, say, the grass gets high, and we cite them for having too high grass. Well, we send them a bill for that if we have to cut their grass. Well, they pay the bill and send it back. They have no problem, having the city mow their yard. And it's, that's just some of the problems we face here. It's difficult because, we have some really great property. We have a plethora of property here that, people could come live and work and do business in our city in, but they chose not to. And now they're abandoned.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It happens all over the Rust Belt area of our nation. From Detroit to former Pittsburgh and Buffalo and Cleveland, and we're just on the very extreme of that. And other cities that have a huge population, like Pittsburgh, for example, several years ago, they were going through their renaissance. That's what the mayor was calling it. And, we live relatively close to Pittsburgh, so we're up there quite often. And, it's amazing to go, when I lived there, I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for 4 years. And, some of the areas I lived in were the ghetto. I mean, it was pretty bad. Now I go back there, everything's been gentrified. The properties are amazing, and they're going for hundreds of thousands of dollars. We just don't have that because we're not a major metropolitan area. We don't have the amenities. We don't have the attractions, and people are fleeing our state. So it's a tall order.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like you have to do away with property tax to lure businesses in, but property tax is how your city has been structured to turn a revenue and actually do day-to-day business. And it's a tough one. It's a real tough one. I mean,
the state has been contemplating getting rid of the income tax, and that would have been a huge, attracting people. The problem is and I like to describe it like this: West Virginia is two different states. In fact, maybe it's even three different states. Really, you have the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, which resides 70 to 100 miles outside of Washington, D.C.
Yep.
People who live, who live in the Eastern Panhandle have the ability to work in Maryland. They have the ability to work in D.C., Baltimore, Northern Virginia, Western, kind of like North Central Virginia. And, they have the ability to commute. We don't have that option here. So west of the Allegheny Mountains, it's a different West Virginia. And the further south you go, the more rural it becomes. When you got places like south of Charleston, West Virginia, you may have seen documentaries on. I mean, Boone and McDowell counties are just like, almost third world countries compared to other places in our state. So and it's I'm not quite sure how you solve that problem. So removing the income tax would be great for people who lived in the Eastern Panhandle, but not so much for people who who may be on welfare or food stamps in Boone or McDowell counties or other places in West Virginia.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I mean, all libertarians agree that taxation is theft, but there are people who so depend on these government programs that we have to figure out a level of compassion and complete our obligation to these people that we've already made the promises to, while still rolling back or eliminating taxation. So it's a tough one. It's a real tough one.
Yeah. Well, one of the big problems with the governor's plan to remove the income tax in West Virginia was he was basically placing it on everything else, from food to to raising taxes on craft beer and liquor and spirits and cigarettes and gasoline. And I mean, it was going to be a big transition where some people in the state of West Virginia could be paying possibly up to 10 to 10.5% sales tax or more, which right now the majority of people in my area pay either 6 or 7%, depending on if you live in a municipality. The city of Clarksburg, several years ago, going back to this theater, enacted a 1% sales tax under the guise to pay for this movie theater that we have. So, it's that was the idea. But what happened with that money? They ended up, shoring up the police and fire pensions, which again, they were in the red. So we had to do something. But of course, COVID really hurt the theater, and it took it down a peg. But hopefully, they can get it back on track.
Well, unfunded pensions is a topic for another time.
Yeah.
Those are absolutely horrific.
But those small town theaters are really a thing.
Absolutely.
In my community, we're about 7,000 in our community, and it closed down several years ago because the guy that owned it wasn't making money, right? But there's this real desire, and so a community 501c3 got together, and they finally just raised the money that they need to do the renovation. They had the projector. A lot of these went out of business when they moved to there's some sort of a high digital format. That everything went to that, and so a lot of these places couldn't spend the $100,000 on a new projector that they had to go with. But the theater is really a real element for the small towns, and
absolutely. And I don't disagree. I mean, it's a great attraction. It's a great amenity to have, to say you have one in your area or live near it or work near it, and it's a boon for businesses that are near. That was the idea. If you build it, businesses will come around and support the theater with restaurants and bars, and unfortunately, we just haven't seen that happen yet. And I'm hoping it does happen. I might be a critic of it, but I don't want it to fail. And a lot of people get on me about that. But I think at the time our priorities are wrong. And it comes back to the issue of what we were having in our city with the rundown and the turndown. Literally the year that they were discussing purchasing the theater and renovating it, there was a father and son paper delivery team, and one of them was mentally handicapped, and they were shot dead in a drug feud between 3 other people, and they were just there at the wrong time. And here we are discussing building or renovating this theater. It's like we can't even keep our people safe on our streets. It's we need our priorities fixed. So I think we've made some great changes before I came on city council, and I hope we continue to make good changes to not only make our city safer, but also support the arts, support the theater, and make sure it's a viable venue. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll just need to look at other options.
Yeah, and hopefully, like they did in Laura City, maybe a 501c3 can actually take it over and run it as a nonprofit and still have the same great benefits for it.
And it's a possibility. The theater got several contributions from people in the community. The former mayor contributed to it. Now we have, I guess, right after COVID, a local oil and gas company contributed, I think, $150,000 or so. It was a huge amount of money, which was really helpful in the situation because they were in the red from being closed from COVID. So again, I may be a critic of it, but I want it to be successful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everyone wants to have some sort of revitalization plan. I just don't know if the government itself should be getting involved, and I think 501c3s or public organizations should be the ones coming in and doing the work. But I mean, that's the libertarian.
Sure, absolutely.
But I mean, we were talking about some other things that your city was facing. Do you want to go over something like that?
Sure. We just recently had an issue with there were some findings with lead in our water, and I was explaining that the water board in our city is a chartered organization that you actually vote to be a part of their board. Run for office to be a part of their board. So it's kind of a separate entity from the city of Clarksburg, although we do have some funds that interchange between them. So it's the lead issue, I guess, was discovered in late 2020. Early 2021, and I didn't actually touch on this. I guess there were some issues where they found these results, and the state DHHR failed to notify anybody but the federal EPA and other organizations. And the Clarksburg Water Board was literally the last people to know that they were finding lead in the water. So it was a cluster at the time, and these guys are doing a great job testing. They're reaching out and getting tests out to the people, and we're trying to figure out how the city can help them by getting their own lab that can test for lead in their laboratory that they have now, that can turn it around in less than a few days, because they have to test, I think, from what I understand, nearly 8,000 residences and businesses and basically water customers in the city of Clarksburg. So it's I think they said at the rate that they have now, it would take 5 years to test everybody in the city of Clarksburg, which the EPA gave them like 1 year to do it, or it was something ridiculous. And they hit them they were going to fine them $5,000 a day for not notifying the residences of Clarksburg, and so they had to scramble to get a recorded message out to all their customers, and it was a mess. But I think they're getting it under control, and I'm hoping that the amount of lead will be low. And again, it's not in the water itself; it's just in these homes that have lead lines, lead service lines that the city has had, and that was another issue. They didn't know. They had no records that indicated what lines have been replaced, what lines were, from 1910. They just don't know. And that was another thing that was an issue for them. But they're getting their thumb on it, and hopefully it turns out to be okay. Well, that's what we can hope for.
That's what I was going to ask you. The next thing I was going to ask you, and I'm glad you touched on it. If is this a question of individual homes having lead pipes, or is it a problem of the water mains and assorted service lines? And that certainly impacts who's on the hook for it.
Absolutely.
And how you address it, because I would guess that in a lot of homes, if it's home based, that it's going to be tough to make that change. Because there'll be a lot of folks in those older homes that just can't afford to have the whole house replumbed.
That's absolutely true. And there was another stat that I guess 30 some percent, I think it was 36% of the homes in Clarksburg are owned by property companies. They're rental properties. So that comes on the hook of all these landlords. What are they going to do when it turns out, like, if they have 10 properties and every one of them needs new pipes? I mean, that's crippling to any company. I mean, imagine having to find that out. You got to replace all them. So, it's kind of a wait and see, to see exactly. I tested my water here. We haven't heard back from it yet. We should, I'm assuming, receive those results this week, early next week. And hopefully it comes back good, because we have a 5-year-old daughter, and we don't want her to have any issues, and just like everybody else in the entire city. And so it's been interesting, but I think we're going to come out on top.
I wonder if there's a way, Eric, maybe you know this. You read enough. You maybe know this, but is there some way to sort of retrofit things without tearing the whole house apart?
So yes and no, all at the same time.
Okay.
If it's the line entering into the house, and it's of a sufficient diameter, you can actually jacket it, which basically they'll have to turn the water off at the main, and it looks like a big balloon in essence. They inflate it going down the service line, and that will actually jacket the lead line, so the water will never come in contact with it. And then they basically hit it with UV light to harden it, and then they cut off both ends, and then the pipe will operate as normal because now it's been jacketed. So you don't actually have to remove the lead line. But once you get into the house, that's where everything gets really tricky, because the pipes don't have the sufficient diameter, so you wouldn't be able to use that type of treatment. And the only type of remedy would actually be a full plumbing removal and replacement. So, and again, that also depends on what the diameter of the service lines are, if that's even going to be a viable option. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it, but there are potential solutions. I know a lot of the mains in Flint, they're actually looking at doing a similar system where they actually jacket the pipes to isolate everything. But the problem also comes in that if you're doing these to the mains, you're going to have to turn off the water to these areas for extended periods of time while they're installing the jackets. So a block may not have running water for 3-4 days before they can safely turn on the water again. And so you're doing this weird dance, and whenever you butt up one jacket to another, is the seal going to be good enough, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of questions, and they're really trying to work on that. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be really, really difficult.
They were also talking about
long-term solution.
They were also talking about treating the lines, or directly treating the water supply with some kind of phosphorus agent that would line the pipes with phosphorus and prevent seepage or leakage out, from the lead into the phosphorus. Does the same thing that your jacket talks about, only it's some kind of chemical. And the water board doesn't like the idea, mainly because they don't really want to add a chemical to the water, and apparently it does affect the taste to a certain extent. Some say it's negligible, some say it's definitely tasteable, but the water board, and they've done a great job. They've received awards all over the state for having the best tap water in the state. So I guess they take it very seriously, and they don't even really want to do that if they don't have to.
Yeah, there are actually some problems with phosphorus in the water, especially if you don't have sewage treatment. because what happens is the phosphorus actually, the reason it creates that jacket is because it bonds with the oxygen as it goes through the lines. So if you don't have a proper sewage treatment plant, you'll actually potentially deoxygenate and kill off all the fish downstream.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of problems with adding phosphorus, but yes, if it is a possible solution, but yeah, there's a lot of other issues that can come around with that. Yeah. And we're probably boring our listeners on this one, but it's there's no easy solution. There really isn't. Is really what it is. I know, Will, you had asked me to also share the Libertarian state page of West Virginia, so I've got that up there for you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. West Virginia, it definitely deserves your support. So if you're looking for a state party to support West Virginia and give them a donation. Maybe even become a monthly donor at $2 or $3 a month. $5 would be great. And those dollars would really go a long way to support the state of West Virginia and the efforts of the Libertarian Party.
Absolutely. I certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anything else in West Virginia as far as the party is doing that's really great? Because I know you guys just had a huge boon, not only yourself, but there was several other individuals in your county who all got elected at the same time.
Absolutely. We had three elected libertarians and 3 nonpartisan races all over my county. One of the gentlemen I know, actually, I met both of them through my House of Delegates campaign. See, I've been running a perpetual campaign here since 2018. I ran for House of Delegates here in West Virginia in 2018. Obviously, I didn't win that. In 2019, I said, you know what, I'll run for Clarksburg City Council as well. And again, I did not win that race. 2020 came around again, and I was like, well, no one else is probably going to run for House of Delegates as a libertarian here locally. So I put my hat in the ring. This time around, I did a little different. I didn't do much campaigning, obviously, with COVID and everything going on. But, I did do some videos, and that got some reach. I did some radio advertisements as well. And 2021 came around. Everybody kept asking me, Will, are you going to run for Clarksburg City Council? Are you going to run for Clarksburg City Council? You did really well in 2019. You should run again. And, I sat on it for a while. And there was a couple factors that happened in the race. One major incumbent decided not to run again. Well, actually 3. One of them I knew personally, and he told me that. So I was like, look, with you out, I better get in there now. And it paid off through hard campaigning and a lot of door-to-door knocking. And one of my big things was videos. I reached a lot of people with videos this time around. That was my 2 key factors. I told myself, I got to knock doors. I have to knock way more doors than I did in 2019. I ordered 5,000 door hangers. I handed out 3,500 of them. I ran out of time at the end trying to reach everybody that I could. I resorted to dropping them instead of knocking. But I still knocked a lot of those people at the very end. The other big factor I had was reaching out with videos. I did 6 videos, 2 to 3 minutes long. And about every week up to the election, I did a video. Now there was I had some health issues in my family. I had to stop and help take care of my grandmother. She became very ill, and that took a lot of time. But I still try to get these videos out, and I reached, to my surprise, thousands of people with these videos. I was stunned. I thought I'd reach a couple hundred people. Obviously, we talked about it this last weekend at the Region 5 training. Sharing, getting involved in your local Facebook groups and sharing these videos is what did it. And people were reaching out to me with these videos. They would tell me, I like what you're talking about. I'm going to vote for you. And it's what put me over the top, I believe.
Well, it's that time of the show where we go into our next phase and go question by question through the Washington Weekly News Quiz provided by PBS.
Oh,
are you ready? Have you been watching the news this week?
Absolutely not. I've been so busy.
Don't worry, Eric always watches, so
Yeah,
he'll be able to.
I'm a newsie, so
Just copy
yeah.
off you. Is that what we're doing?
He'll tell us when we're wrong.
This week, how did leaders in Washington address the expiration of the eviction moratorium? CDC and Biden administration announced a 2-month extension applying to areas with higher transmission rates. Members of Congress agreed to add a 3-month extension to infrastructure negotiations, and neither the White House nor Congress have taken action.
Well, I did see an article in, I believe it was the Richmond newspaper as I was heading home from the Region 5 training. And I want to say that the CDC, it sounded like they took the charge on extending it. And the headline to me read like it was just them that did it. And I'm assuming Biden probably was in there as well with some executive actions or something along those lines to make it happen.
Yep.
I'm going to go with the first answer.
You got it right.
You are absolutely right. Yeah, the CDC took the charge, and then Biden backed them up a little reluctantly, actually. But yeah, he did. I'm not a big fan of the moratorium. I understand why it happened and everything. I think this has been largely mishandled and just not properly executed. But this is water under a bridge at this point, and changing course now would be absolutely disastrous. But it should have never been handled this way in the beginning at all. But yeah,
that's one of those things, though. That I mean, that's one of those things that people, for better or worse, a lot of people expect government to do something. And while the moratorium was a bad idea from the beginning, way back in the Trump administration, right? It is difficult to see what the other answers were. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who, because of the nature of their job, I mean, in our family, it wasn't a problem. Right. I mean, I work from home. My husband is a physician, and I had to go to work every day, and I worked from home every day like I do every other day. But for a lot of people, not going to work, you lose your income.
Right.
And when, what do you do? I mean, you don't want to have a whole bunch of people and families out on the streets, right?
No, absolutely. And something needed to be done. I mean, I'm not saying that, we have to just, it's not another Tuesday. Let's be honest.
Right.
But the way they've handled this, and giving individuals money directly for their rent, or just a whole host of different solutions, they all came and shotgunned this out. It was just not handled properly. Not to mention that courthouses for property law have been shut down in almost every single state for extended periods of time. So even though you would potentially file with the sheriff's department for eviction, it wasn't going anywhere anyway, because there would be no judge to ever sign off on the eviction.
Right.
So it would have been very different. And to have this come down at the federal level was totally wrong anyway. I think this should have been a mandate from the federal government to the states, and probably just shut down or cease hearing the eviction trials or the eviction sign-offs to stall or to suspend operation on this, instead of having this overreaching policy that really just did not function as intended. But that's my hindsight on it. I probably would not have had that solution on day one. So hindsight is 2020, unfortunately.
And that's unfortunately what happens a lot of times, that everybody gets on board a solution, and it's not until after you've already gone down one road that you realize you've taken the wrong turn.
That's very true. I mean, it is difficult. How are you guys in West Virginia handling this in Clarksburg?
Well, like I said earlier, 36% of our properties are owned by rental property owners or our rental property. So, and I'm personally involved with some out in the western part of our county here with some family properties that we have. So, it's I think in some cases, I think you can let the market do what it's going to do, because you have people who, maybe that's their livelihood. Maybe they own 20, 30, 40 rental properties. Maybe they could say, and take it by case basis. That's, somebody's struggling. Okay. I'll help you maybe find the assistance. I'm not going to evict you because I understand what's going on right now.
Right.
But as the situation went on, when you had the unemployment, the federal boost, federal $600 added to the unemployment, then rental assistance and other things that came from the government that people could apply for. If I was a rental property owner that had 20, 30, 40 properties or so, I would have looked into that and said, how can I keep people in these properties, because at least I know I'm going to get something, and should things return to somewhat normal where they can go back to work, eventually they're going to pay me maybe what they owe or some of what they owe, and continue to live in my property where I can still make money. So, I don't know if it was such a drastic, life or death issue for some people. Now, if you have one property and, these people aren't paying the rent, despite, some jobs are open, they can go find a job somewhere else. I think you can maybe say, look, it's not working out. Maybe you need to go find another, somewhere else to live, because what's going on right now, surely, you can go find another property somewhere because somebody else has been evicted elsewhere. I think it was kind of drastic to put a moratorium on it myself. And I think I was against it from the beginning, or held resentment against, or whatever you want to say. So, I think it turned out to be a bad idea as well. And I think the market probably could have handled it. We just didn't let it. We didn't try. We didn't try at all. So,
yeah, we had a knee-jerk reaction, and actually, it's interesting. But if you listen to the Board of Realtors, they are actually contributing this moratorium to the sharp rise in rental price around the country that we're seeing, because there's just not a vacation of properties, and sometimes especially in the corporately held properties, they don't even know that their tenants have vacated, but they're not checking up to re-rent the property because they are blaming the moratorium, and their individuals or their tenants have just vacated with no notice. So it's interesting. It's really, really interesting. Next question. The devil himself, Andrew Cuomo. Select all that apply. Which of the following events relating to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo have occurred this week? So this is select one or more of these. New York Attorney General released a report detailing the sexual misconduct by Cuomo. Cuomo held a press conference denying the allegations, including a montage of him touching people. And Cuomo announced his resignation as governor.
Well, we know that the third one didn't happen, obviously. So, and I'm pretty certain the top one did. I'm not quite sure about number two.
Oh, yeah. And if you haven't seen it, I highly encourage you to go see it, because it is probably one of the most cringeworthy things you have ever seen in your life. It is Cuomo touching and kissing people through the ears. It is so creepy. I can't even explain to this.
Did he have music in the? I haven't watched. I've just seen pictures of it. Did they have music on in the background? Or?
Oh yeah. Oh. This is production montage. Ooh. Creepiness. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible.
If we have a little time at the end, we ought to just pull it up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, he needs to go. I mean, not only for the safety of New York, but just, oh my gosh, this man is horrendous.
Well, didn't President Biden recommend that he resign, or say that he needs to resign?
And actually, the Democratic Governors Association has actually come out with a tongue-in-cheek line saying that he's the most hands-on governor in America. So this is his own party. This is his own party. Just
That's awesome.
Yeah, just absolutely. I mean, there are no lifelines. There's nobody.
Tomorrow would be a good day to resign
at all.
Go out on a Friday. Just call it. So maybe we'll see that tomorrow. Maybe he'll pull the plug tomorrow on it.
I mean, I've never physically met Andrew Cuomo, but knowing the family,
yeah,
and his self-absorbedness, he's not going anywhere. He's going to fight this out tooth and nail. He will ride this impeachment and destroy New York with him. It's just this is how the man operates. He is disgusting. But yeah. Missouri Governor Mike Parson issued pardons to a couple arrested for taking what action last summer? Yes, this has returned to the news.
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
Coughing on people who were wearing masks in a grocery store, painting pro-Trump messages on sidewalks around their town, or pointing guns at social justice protesters outside their house.
Yeah, that's number 3 there.
But it'll be interesting to see if Nebraska's governor issues a pardon to a guy who actually walked up to somebody who was wearing a mask and spit on him in Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah. It's like, well, wait a second. So
crazy.
I wouldn't be surprised. Our
governor. Yep.
Yeah.
Your governor. No.
We got
one of them too.
Yeah.
I believe that you have the right to protect your property and all of that. This went beyond that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And they needed to stand trial for this.
Yeah.
That's just the way I look at it. Yes, they didn't discharge their weapons, but there was clear intimidation of people that were across the street. And not even near their property. This was bad. This was just really bad on many, many levels.
Well, didn't I read this? They're attorneys, right?
Yes.
And so part of the issue was that they had pled down to a misdemeanor, but there was some question about whether they would be disbarred if they didn't, if they were found guilty. So the governor pardoned them from everything. Then.
Yep, that is correct. They were in jeopardy of being disbarred, and that was partially the impetus for this. But they're also really big donors to Mike Parson.
Oh, there you go.
Naturally.
Surprise!
That's the way it works.
Yeah. Next question. In which state are schools defying a statewide ban on mask mandates in the school districts?
Yeah.
Texas, Mississippi, or Florida?
Probably got to start with Florida, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear that Texas or Mississippi would be in there as well.
So you are correct. There are school districts that are requiring masks to come back to school, even though the governor has said, no, you cannot mandate masks any longer. This is one of those catch-22 situations. I am against mask mandates. I believe masks should be worn. I think masks have a science behind them, and it's clear. But I do not want to be forced to wear one. And yet, these kids are in government property and on government property and in government programs, and I treat them like a business. If the business wants to say that we don't want to do business with you if you don't do this, that is a business's right. And I think this school district or these school districts have that right to mandate to their children or to their faculty that this is a requirement. But that's just the way I look at it, because I'm looking at the school as a business.
This is where we get into a lot of trouble in libertarian circles, because, I agree with you. And as a former school board member, I will tell you that in today's litigious society, that if CYA, you're going to run into real problems as a school board or as an administrator if you have a class of seventh graders who all come down with COVID and somebody dies.
Yep.
So then that's going to cost the taxpayers money, because it's not the principal that's going to pay the bill, it's the school district. So I mean it is a conundrum.
Not even, I mean, yes, a child dying from COVID would be horrific, but think about it. If one of the teachers got violently ill, now you're not only dealing with the teacher's family, but you're dealing with the teacher union too. Oh, that's something I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, we have gotten ourselves so far dug in. In terms of lawsuits and in terms of what we expect government to do to protect us from all things evil, that there's not an easy answer, as much as we would like to say that there is. And if we could start from scratch, we could probably all come up with, but we have to kind of deal with the world that we're in and figure out how best to be as libertarian as we can in the world that we're in, I think.
And I want to reiterate that I am against mask mandates as blanket statements. But if you are inside a government building, I treat them like a business. And if the business does not want to do business with you, they don't have to. And that's the way I see it. So,
okay, now Will's going to tell us we're wrong.
Yes.
Well, I don't like the idea of it. We have some local groups here that are very against the mask mandates, very against the shutdowns, very against obviously the vaccine issues, and it's and I see their point, and I think it really opens the market for charter private schools and other things that are where we really want them here in West Virginia. Unfortunately, our market really doesn't support them. We just don't have the money. A lot of, I'm sure there's some people that would love to send their kid to private school here locally here in West Virginia. I myself send my daughter to a private Montessori school, and the options beyond that are very slim outside of religious schools. So it's and I know that they have been doing their own masking and different type of school rotations of the classes, so you don't have all the kids in there at one time. But anyway, that was 2020. Now we're back to 2021. People are through with it here in West Virginia. Everybody hates it. I see maybe a couple people out wearing masks, and these are in businesses, so I don't go into very many government buildings, although with the exception of City Hall. But and right then, if somebody approached me and said, "Will, we need to do one for the city of Clarksburg," I would say no. I mean, we can't go back. We're through with it. People want to take the risk. They want to live their life. They want to get back to normal. You're not going to do it by continuing the lockdowns. You're going to continue in the mandates. As far as schools go, I don't believe they should be in schools. I believe again. The best thing that West Virginia is doing right now is offering virtual school for people who want it. So, if you want to keep your kid in virtual school, because you don't want them there, around other kids or wearing masks or, possibly having to get a vaccination to go to school. We don't know if that's going to happen or not, but,
Uh-oh, we lost Will.
Will froze. It's not a conspiracy. I assure you.
You pressed the button, didn't you, Eric?
Oh, yeah, I know, right? The magic button. Will, I hope you can join us back.
Yeah. So Eric, until Will gets back, this is obviously a problem, and and I think one of the problems that we as libertarians fight with each other about is that we try to make these absolute statements about the way things should be. And we can all agree the way things should be. But by the same token, we have to figure out the way that they can be, based on where we are today. I mean, we aren't going to wave a magic wand and start back in 1776. And, if we could do that, for one thing, we'd probably have a whole lot less growth in our country. I mean, if I like to live in my rural Nebraska.
Yeah.
But if everybody lived in rural Nebraska, a lot of these mandates wouldn't be around. So, okay, let's go to the next question.
Next question. Why has the World Health Organization called for a moratorium on COVID-19 booster shots?
I saw this. I think it's to conserve the vaccines and supply because there's a shortage in some places, right?
Yeah, it could either be to conserve vaccines amid a supply chain shortage, but I don't think there is an actual.
Ensuring enough doses are available in countries with fewer vaccines. Yeah,
I think that's the correct answer.
I didn't read all of the answers. That's something you're supposed to do.
Saying, I've heard about this before I read everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's absolutely it. The WHO is really concerned about countries like Bulgaria, a lot of your African nations who have been promised to receive free shots, but if countries like the United States that are paying for the shots start saying, "Oh, we're going to have to mandate boosters," then obviously they're going to have them in that situation. And Will has rejoined us. How are you doing, Will? There we go.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about, but I am back.
Happy to have you back.
I'm having trouble hearing you guys though. Hold on one second here.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear us now? Guess not.
Maybe a Verizon question. We're just gonna keep saying, "Can you hear me now?"
No.
No.
Uh-oh.
Well, so it's allowing me to get back in the computer here. I'll be there here.
Okay.
All right. But I don't have anything else to say about this one.
Okay.
Which law did Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson say this week that he now regrets signing?
Oh.
A ban on critical race theory, a ban to access transgender healthcare services, or a ban on mask mandates?
I don't know for sure, but Arkansas is blowing up with COVID, isn't it?
It is.
It's probably the ban on the mask mandates.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that they banned the mask mandates, but I mean, this doesn't stop people from wearing masks, people. All you have to do is go out there and say, hey, the Delta variant is real. It's a problem. You need to start putting on your masks again. We're not going to make you do it, but
it'd sure be nice if you would.
Exactly. And you know what? Most people are actually responsible individuals that will respond to that positively without giving them some sort of legal issue.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've had some exchanges with people though that make me think that there's a fairly significant portion of people who aren't reasonable and who don't, who
population.
But I mean they decide that they don't want mandates. So they're just not going. But even though we have no mandates, and we never, except in Lincoln, Nebraska, there never was a mandate in Nebraska, right? So they don't want mandates, and yet they refuse to wear a mask because even being asked to wear a mask is a mandate. And it was Carol asked who was meowing, and it was my cat.
Well, but because there were mandates in other parts of the country, people felt like there was mandates everywhere.
Yeah.
And if we would have given individuals good information from the beginning, like we should have as a nation or as health organizations or whatever, it would have actually, I think, reason would have come to American individuals. And if we treat the American citizens like children and say you have to eat your vegetables, what are the one thing the children are not going to do? They don't want to eat vegetables. Don't force it on people and explain why you should do something, and people go along with it. Treat people like common sense human adults, and people will act like adults. Treat them like children, they will act like children, guaranteed. Sorry, that's the end of that's
You,
all
you
I
have you have a lot more optimism about the state of the general public than I do. I'm afraid, Eric. I don't know.
Probably. I give people the benefit of the doubt even when they try to prove me wrong. So
I've always tried to do that, and it seems like the last 5 years, it probably has to do with my reelection campaign too. I've become much more cynical, but that's okay. Move on.
Ryan Jenkins would like to point out that he hates vegetables as much as he hates mandates.
And there he is, not eating a vegetable.
Exactly. Not eating vegetables in his profile picture there.
Eating extreme, I'm sure.
Lawyers for former President Donald Trump interviewed in a lawsuit relating to requests from the White House for 6 years of his tax returns, his efforts to pressure state election officials after Election Day, or allegations of sexual misconduct by the former president.
I thought maybe I heard a little bit about this, about his efforts to pressure state election officials after Election Day, but I could be wrong.
I thought it was the tax returns.
Yeah,
Isn't
it's
it?
the tax return.
Because I have people that say that he's going to end up in prison yet. I don't believe that, but
I believe that Donald Trump is going to be the next Al Capone. If they're going to hang him on anything, it's going to be tax.
Yeah, taxes. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's all they're going to have really, in that they're going to actually be able to get stick on him. He's Teflon enough that I don't think they're going to be able to pin January 6th on him or anything else. But we all know the IRS will get their man, unfortunately. And yeah, it's one of the other reasons I hate the IRS. Taxation. Not that I like Trump. I hate Trump. I think Trump is disgusting. I wish he was never president. But yeah, whatever. Okay. In which state did a primary for a special U.S. House election see Chantal Brown defeat prominent progressive Nina Turner? This happened just the other day. It was big news.
Well, I think I saw that was in Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio. Chantal Brown is one for the Democratic primary, and I forget the individual of the person who won in the Republican primary, but it's the first time in months that the one that Trump picked actually won. It finally his tailcoat had something left to it, some tattered threads that pulled them through. So yeah, that was and Trump is already he's talked about it for 3 days now on how this is the sign that he's going to be back for America. So yeah, this is
only he can do it.
Oh yeah, only he can do it. Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, even the Democrat, very moderate individual, not progressive in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. I'm looking forward to November to see the outcomes of this race, because it's going to be a race to watch.
Mike Carey. I don't know who Mike Carey is.
Who had to scale back plans for a large outdoor 60th birthday party due to concerns about the Delta variant? Barack Obama, Brad Pitt, or Kevin McCarthy?
Yeah, I think I saw this one. This was Mr. Obama there.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
yeah.
I say he's the same age as my husband, and so they it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been planning a large gathering for months and making that accounted for public health guidelines, but at the last, but made the decision at the last week to invite only friends and close family. Yeah, I mean, you got to do what's right for you, and he did, and that's awesome, and I respect him for it. Select all that apply. Which of the following businesses rolled out new salary increases or new benefits in the past 2 weeks in an effort to lure workers? Walmart, Target, and CVS.
Well, I'm pretty certain I saw Walmart on that list,
Mhm.
but I don't know about the other two. I mean, Target's always been a little bit ahead of the game as far as wages goes, at least locally. They always advertise that their employees are getting paid more than most other retail shops, but I don't know.
And CVS is connected with Target, right?
CVS has a contract with Target for pharmacy
stuff.
and for Minute Clinic.
I don't know.
Our line says all of them.
Okay. Well, let's go with her.
I agree. All of them. Yep, and that's correct. This is really what it's about in my mind. This is why minimum wage laws do not work, because now all of them are going to be starting to pay $15 an hour by the end of the year. There's an employment shortage. I mean, we have a worker shortage in this country. We're going to start paying our workers more. This is how the market works. There is no need for a new minimum wage. In fact, I believe we should get rid of the minimum wage and let the market decide, because the market is actually coming down on exactly the way everyone wants it to. These companies are paying more because the labor is worth more. That's what it is. And yeah, I'll get off my soapbox. Anyone else have anything to say?
I agree. I agree with it.
Yeah. Yep. When workers are in demand, they can make the demands, and that's the consumer-driven market. Thank you, Evelyn. Yeah. And that concludes our little quiz. We got 100!
Yay!
That's always a good thing. We are a little over time today, but do we have any closing remarks? Anything that you want to talk about and wrap up, Will?
I think we had a great time over the weekend there in Norfolk at the Region 5 training. I appreciate Kara and everybody else who spent their time with us this weekend to help train and help get some more libertarians elected. I thought it was a great course. I think there was a lot of experience in the room, and I think we can only go up from here. I look forward to the next one. It'll be a good time.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And if you are a libertarian and you have not attended one of the regional trainings, I highly recommend you do so. They will be doing them again next year in new locations, so hopefully one will be convenient for you. But you can definitely get a lot of great information if you want to run for office, or if you want to start an affiliate or make your affiliate better. Both of them are phenomenal. There's 2 tracks at every single one of these training
events.
Yeah, events. Thank you.
Yeah.
The English language just defeated me. Yep, Region 8 is going to be in New Jersey in October. Thank you, Eveline. Yeah, you're full of great comments here at the end of our show, so thank you so much. Laura, anything to add?
Nope. If you're in Nebraska, get in touch with me because we have a big event coming up this weekend out in Ogallala. So contact me tonight and I'll tell you how to get there.
And I've got nothing this week, so thank you so much. Thank you to all of the people who have watched the show. Thank you to everyone who is watching this pre-recorded, and you have a great night, and we'll see you again next week with our next guest, Thomas Queter from New York. So lots of fun there. Will, thank you for being on the show. You've been a phenomenal guest. Thank you so much. It has been my pleasure and our pleasure to have you on the show tonight. So again, good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.